Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office by Lois P Frankel. Just as the old saying goes, nice guys finish last. The title is supposed to be a play on this alone stands out. The chapters consist of what in the book were called mistakes. What are these mistakes regarding? What can we learn from this book? And how does a girl get the corner office if she can't be nice? Let's talk about it. Just a brief overview of what you'll see in the description. There are affiliate links, and if you buy anything through those links, like maybe this book, then I get commission, which helps me build this channel and keep making these videos. You can also find this book and many others on my Amazon storefront, and any other books I mention in this video, chances are I've reviewed those as well, and I'll drop those reviews in the description as well. So affiliate links, Amazon storefront, and other book reviews. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sam, and I want to make self-growth normal, because people shouldn't have to look this information up. It should just be mainstream knowledge. If you agree, then please make sure to smash that like button. So for starters, the mistakes are unconscious ones that the author says women make to sabotage their careers. Although in the past 10-20 years, women have broken a glass ceiling, there appears to remain a glass treehouse above it. And the author didn't want to write a 10th anniversary edition because she felt that ideally there shouldn't need to be one. But she doesn't sound that pissed about it, more like fed up. The book contains not one mistake, not 5 mistakes, not 32 mistakes, but 133 mistakes that women make at work due to their socialization. Most women, she says, do not make all 133 mistakes, but they do make more than one. This is nothing against the author, but I have a feeling that there are going to be like so many mistakes in this book that a lot of them you could say about men, and I also have a feeling that negative reviews of this book may point that out and try to take sex out of the whole equation. Tips for correcting the mistake, however, are found at the end of each one, which is constructive. I'm not going to go over every single mistake because, there aren't 33, like literally 33, like there were with the Strategies of War by Robert Greene. There are 133, but she did categorize them and put each of them into multiple chapters. Chapter 1 is getting started. Media, family, and social messages. They teach women from a young age to be polite, compliant, and soft-spoken, so they are acting now in ways more consistent with their learning experiences. The biggest word that comes to mind when it comes to how this affects a woman's ability to advance in the workplace, to me, is without a doubt plateau. You get to a certain point where it's like shaped instincts sabotage you. And by the way, on my part as a male, when I say this, a lot of the stuff in this review, it's either straight from the book or it's an observation based on what I hear in the book, unless disclosed otherwise. Chapter 2 is how you play the game. Certain characteristics women are known for thriving in practicing more than men are listening, compassion, and collaboration, which tend to equate to EQ or emotional quotient. The author coaches men in excelling in these. I looked this lady up and she is still alive. Here she discussed pregnancy and when to tell people at work about it, and social media and using it to build your power base, and much more like the rest of the book. Unless directed otherwise, never ask for permission to spend money. Instead, expect you'll be told if there's a problem, and if there is, don't apologize. Simply acknowledge your understanding of the message and ask for clarification around spending authority. So this chapter is what I would consider to be like chess moves or power moves. Chapter 3 is how you act. This one covered actions and behaviors, including preparation, something that personally I've had great experiences focusing on. Multitasking, which according to Jeb Blunt's Fanatical Prospecting, basic neuroscience refutes the effectiveness of. Therefore, I don't see the point of having sections in books about using it in general, but this book seems to agree with me. Receiving feedback, taking the act of taking things personally off the table, just simply getting over it. I love the tip she gave, the beer tip, she called it, where if you meet a client after a few minutes, you ask yourself, do I see myself going out and having a beer with this person? If you are in Alcoholics Anonymous, put your own spin on that. But I really like how throughout this book, I can't seem to think of anything that she doesn't address. This chapter had one section about office decor and another about having candy on your desk. Like, what the heck? Who thinks of this? Chapter 4, speaking of thinking, how you think. This covered work-life balance, or integration as the author calls it, because a woman can have it all, but just not at the same exact time. Viewing men in authority as father figures, quid pro quo, something for something, which you should be subtly letting people know you're collecting chips by doing them favors. This is so valuable, it's unbelievable how little people talk about it in business books. Not feeling entitled to being paid more when negotiating for a raise. One of the main reasons, according to other books I'll recommend later, as to why men tend to get bigger raises more than women after they begin work post-graduation. Shout out to the author for name dropping Getting to Yes, and covering mindset and one's own, operating system. I feel were crucial in a book like this. Chapter 5 is how you brand and market yourself. This is something the author said women do not do nearly enough of. In order to market yourself, you must be able to separate and differentiate yourself from your competition and explain clearly and professionally how. And by the way, most of these these chapters, it's between 15 and 20 different mistakes that each addresses. With soliciting feedback, she went over when to ignore it, which I'm sure many would find helpful. And overall, she takes into account what people say about you when you leave the room and how to improve it. Chapter 6 is how you sound. Communication is a premier cornerstone of relationships, and communicating in a way that emits nervousness, lack of self-confidence, and a lack of credibility cannot help you in really any way. So the author brought up examples of apologizing and using qualifiers as ways to play it safe. Also speaking with higher versus a lower voice, I know a woman of authority with a deep voice that I wouldn't describe as masculine. It's interesting. Trailing voicemails were also a thing there. A quick tip I've done that works really well, but wasn't in the book, is typing out the voicemail or whatever I'm going to say and just reading it out loud if the person doesn't answer. And in a way that conveys confidence and not a robotic, emotionless nature. Chapter 7 is how you look. This included attire and body language. She said to budget for buying nice clothes every year because when you feel good in clothes, you act more confidently. And she gives many examples of this. But something I really liked here was how she touched upon body language. The importance of body language, it cannot be overstated. A few good reads on this are what every body is saying and presence. Something interesting here was not sitting with your foot on the chair, which I've never even heard of, and where you're at a meeting sitting next to someone powerful. There was even a section on makeup tips, and there's something, despite all of these details, that just doesn't come off as the author scrutinizing the listener in any particular manner, which I found easy to appreciate. It may sound pointless for me to be reviewing this book since I'm not a woman, but I have a very specific way of choosing these books, and this one happens to show up on my radar along with multiple others so far this year about how women can better excel in a modern workplace. After all, I do believe that it's an important topic. I totally should have said this at the beginning of the video, but I digress. And chapter 8 is how you respond. Something I always love in a book like this is an all-encompassing take on something when done in the right way. And there was a fair amount of stoicism going on in this chapter, controlling how you respond to things that may upset you. Much of it has to do with personal values, but it also has to do with being professional and making sure you speak up and fast, knowing when to report sexual harassment. And the reasons for when not to, by the way, are brilliant. Like, you can tell that she has plenty of experience in this, and not experience like, you know, there were many cases that I personally had to deal with myself. Experience as in she directly had to be one of the people who kind of looked over them. And the last mistake, interestingly enough, was about crying and how to excuse yourself when you feel like you're about to. She's like, I bet you thought I probably wasn't going to include this, but I did. Overall, I mean, I love this whole list of mistakes. It's extremely long, it's comprehensive, it's not very scientific at all, and it's super accessible. I think a lot of books like this, it can be sort of a drawback when the author, they're just constantly reminding the listener or reader, this is human. A lot of, everyone does stuff like this, but you can't let that get you down. The author doesn't really do that at all in this book. And for some reason, it didn't bother me. It's also super accessible. It just covers pretty much anything you can think of. It's very organized. All of the mistakes are divided into like each of the chapters, so they're categorized, and it's very easy to go through them topic by topic. And I would say that, all of this has been done before, but another book I would usually recommend in conjunction with this one, How Women Rise, actually came out like 14 years later. Unless you can come up with one in the comments that's older than this one, I imagine this is probably the first one to do it. Perhaps it was ahead of its time. Quotes. Success comes from acting not more like a man, but acting more like a woman instead of a girl. Doing everything you're supposed to isn't proactive. It's only doing everything you're supposed to. Backstabbing is gender blind. Miracle workers aren't recognized. They're canonized. Most people are reluctant to give honest feedback, so when you receive it, accept it. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. If you wouldn't make the comment to someone's face, don't say it in an email or letter. Direction 1. I recommend this book for anyone who's like, what is a woman doing wrong in the workplace and what could she be doing right? If you want to exclude sex from the equation, like I may have mentioned, I as a male have experience with certain mistakes like this, just being overly compliant, polite, and not knowing when and how exactly to put my foot down when it doesn't come naturally to you, or you're not taught how to do it from a younger age. After having checked out the book, I would say it's never too late to start. Direction 2. If you like this book, I recommend checking out The Confidence Code by Claire Shipman and Katty Kay, How Women Rise by Sally Helgeson and Marshall Goldsmith, and a hell of a recommendation here, Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office by Lois P Frankel. There's a link in the description if you want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video if you want to check those out too. If there are any other books that you want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below. Also let me know if you checked out this book. I'm trying to get my my computer charger here. If you checked out this book and you liked it, but hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't get why people watch this far into my videos and they don't subscribe. It's gotta be like a 10+ minute video. But if you have subscribed and you want to turn up just a notch and turn on that notification bell to get a notification whenever I drop new videos, that would mean the world to me. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere, and I will see you then.